Every year, hundreds of fit young people head down south to shake off the cold. You know what it is. Beaches, sunscreen, palm trees, Russell Wilson. Exactly, MLB spring training. But what is spring training for? Baseball players are ridiculously fit, and they already know what they're doing on the field. Seems like spring training isn't really about training anymore.
Hot dogs for everyone.
So, quick question. Why does baseball have spring training? Spring training is a 6-week period when major league teams hold workouts, practices, and exhibition games to prep for the regular season. But it wasn't always like this. Back around the turn of the century, there was no preseason as we know it today. These were the days of horse and buggies. You couldn't just get to a specific part of Florida in 2 hours unless you were, in Florida. Players could practice as much as they had time for, but these guys worked second jobs in the off-season. Even pitching legend Walter Johnson spent his winters digging post holes for the Idaho Telephone Company. But that wasn't exactly the most popular off-season occupation.
Most of them became bartenders, where their celebrity and their storytelling ability sold more liquor, and perhaps in some measure necessitated spring training because they may have consumed the profits.
One team may have gone overboard with the free samples. A.G. Spalding's Chicago White Stockings.
Spalding and the White Stockings were famous lushers. And had taken a temperance pledge during the season, but still not for the off-season. So they went to Hot Springs, Arkansas to boil out the alcoholic microbes.
Spalding's field trip intrigued other clubs, particularly since the detoxed White Stockings played so well, even made it to the World Series. By the 1910s, most baseball teams were traveling to warmer weather cities to train. Places all over the South were on the menu. Some clubs bounced around for their spring training sites. Cleveland in particular seemed to change their location every few minutes. Others preferred a little permanence, like the Wrigley family, who bought an island off of California for the Cubs to train. The Reds were the first to leave the States, heading to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic in the 30s. But it became genuinely necessary for one team.
Most training locations were south of the Mason-Dixon line, where racial segregation was firmly entrenched. So when Jackie showed up in the Brooklyn Dodgers spring training complex, he went to the ballpark and found that the padlocks were on and the game was canceled. So Florida was a problem.
And eventually, it wasn't just the Dodgers looking for friendlier outposts. Cleveland's owner, Bill Veeck, had just signed the American League's first black player, Larry Doby. After similar troubles in other states, he took his club out west.
Bill Veeck convinced the owner of the Giants and a friend that they ought to train in Arizona, and this was the birth of the Cactus League.
This is a nice way to work, isn't it?
Oh, you're not kidding.
As the years went by, mostly for geographical reasons, spring training split into 2 states: Arizona, the Cactus League, and Florida, the Grapefruit League. So, if spring training basically started as a month-long detox, why does it still exist when players today live like this? Players are training all year round. They have home gyms and personal trainers and custom regimens, and they start just weeks, if not days, after the season ends. So maybe it's not just about training in the gym rat sense. It's about honing 3 very different parts of the game: timing, learning, and bonding. See, for a sport that doesn't have a clock, timing is probably the most important part of baseball. For starters, pun intended, pitchers need to work on their arsenal. When a guy has 4 pitches, he'll need to throw them repeatedly and get into a rhythm. The same goes for hitters. Guys have half a blink to decide if they'll swing or not. After nearly 6 months off, It takes some serious practice against live pitchers to get that rhythm back in full swing. Pun also intended. Meanwhile, lots of learning takes place during March baseball. For clubs, every season brings new battles for roster spots. Teams need this time to evaluate their guys and figure out who's going to actually make the team. Who makes the most sense? Whose strengths are maximized where? Who's going to play left field? For some, it's basically high school tryouts all over again. Some players even find themselves being asked to learn a completely foreign position in only a couple of weeks. Like the Brewers' Keston Hiura, who's sliding from second base to first.
Starting fresh at a new position and relearning things. Got a little Brewers legend and Prince Fielder right here. Pat Murphy originally said, hey, you haven't played the position yet. You don't know what a good glove feels like. Our clubhouse manager reached out to me saying, I have a Prince Fielder glove. And I'm like, are you sure you want me to use that? I mean, I wasn't sure if I was qualified yet or not. But first day of spring training, he handed it to me and definitely was a little nervous to use it at first because the last person to put their hand in that glove is Prince Fielder. But no, it's been great and definitely a story to tell.
Finally, spring training's unsung hero, team bonding. There's a lot of roster turnover from year to year, and new players aren't immune to those first day of school vibes. Clubs spend at least 7 consecutive months together. It helps to know who you're working with. Team building exercises started out pretty straightforward. Clubs would play improv games, go on fishing trips, or host ping pong tournaments. Team bonding trends have only gotten wackier and furrier. When Joe Madden managed the Cubs, he had real-life bear cubs brought to the camp one day. And in 2019, the Washington Nationals were visited at spring training by camels. Yeah, camels. See, at that point in franchise history, the Nats had never made it past the first round of the postseason. So, newly appointed manager Davey Martinez arranged for 3 camels to be brought to camp to help his guys visualize getting over the hump. Yeah, sorry for that one. But it worked, and the Nats went on to win their first ever World Series. Since these games don't count, there's room to get a little weird. Weirder than camels weird. Flashback to 2015 when Will Ferrell made baseball history. Seriously. In one day, the comedy star suited up for 10 teams across the Arizona Cactus League. Ferrell played in 5 games, played every position, and now owns a career 0.00 ERA.
I still made the team, right?
And he isn't the only non-player to enter a spring training game. The Yankees had a then 60-year-old Billy Crystal get an at-bat in 2008. And as recently as 2019, star quarterback Russell Wilson suited up in the pinstripes. Even Grammy winner Garth Brooks has popped up all over spring training rosters. He's actually knocked out 2 hits and 39 trips to the plate. So, in its ever-evolving way, spring training exists to get clubs ready, whatever that happens to mean. Maybe it's not about sweating out a bender anymore, but it still gets guys ready for live competition, and maybe most importantly, helps teams bond before a marathon season. And if you get to hang out with some fuzzballs and acting legends, that's just gravy.